yourself and your understanding of the role and responsibility of the Office of the Public Service Commissioner. You will be allocated 45 minutes for this interview. Within those 45 minutes, each member will ask a question or two, and you would have 3 minutes to respond to each question. At the end of the questions, we would also provide you we would also allow you questions to the panel if there are any issues of clarity from your side. So we would then start our session with a presentation from yourself of 15 minutes, which you have been advised in terms of the letter of invitation for these interviews. After the 15 minutes of your presentation, we would then open the floor to the panel to ask their questions. Over to you. Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you so much, and good afternoon to you and to members of the panel. In terms of the brief, one was to do a presentation on the powers and functions of the Public Service Commission Office, and a presentation as well in terms of how one can optimize performance of the office. Starting off with that, Chair, I have 14 slides to present. I'll hope to keep within those slides, and here and there I will supplement with my own notes on information related to a particular slide as I move forward. The table of contents of the slides are as it's reflected there. I would talk a bit of what the Public Service Commission is and its jurisdiction, its mandate, accountability and functions, inclusive of the public service values and principles as outlined, as I would have touched on before coming there too, and maybe if needs be, one would jump that slide and how to optimize performance of the office. The Public Service Commission is a juristic person established in terms of Chapter 10 as an organ of state, Chapter 10 of Act 108 of 1996, which is the Constitution, as an organ of state, and it operates within the jurisdiction of the respective provinces as outlined in Chapter 6. Section 103, subsection 1, which defines establishment of provinces, the 9 provinces that we have, and it accounts to the provincial legislature in this context in terms of section 104, as that assigns as this section assigns the legislative authority to provinces, and in terms of which section 114, subsection 2B, assigns maintenance of oversight by legislatures of any provincial organ of state. That's why it would also account there. And then section 115 requires that any person or institution has to report to the legislature whenever required to do so. Public Service Commission as an independent institutions that supports democracy derives its mandate, as mentioned, particularly from the Constitution, section 195 and 196, and further from the Public Service Commission Act 46 of 1997, which assigns functions to it in terms of Part 3, section 8 to 11, for it to perform inspections, obtain information or documents from whoever is relevant, to call for inquiries, call or summon any person to give evidence, documents or whatever that it would require as material information to enable it to conduct its business, and to establish rules for investigations and procedures, giving powers and duties to chairpersons of meetings and for procedures of such meetings as gazetted in Gazette 2367 of March 2004. Now, in the establishment of rules, there would be additional gazettes that give impetus to this function. For example, Gazette 38620 of March 2015, which assigns the oversight on governance by the Public Service Commission. Gazette 40359 of the 21st of October 1996, which is about referrals of matters to the Commission for it to investigate, and also the matter related to grievances which may emanate from employees or functionaries of the state. And lastly, Gazette 40552 of the 20th of January 2017, which is about procedures to be followed on how to conduct investigations. Then, following on the additional legislative mandate from which it derives its powers and functions, there is Public Administration Management Act 11 of 2014, whose intent is to promote the basic values and principles that govern public admin as referred to Section 195, subsection 1 of the Constitution, and to provide for the transfer and secondment of employees in public admin and to regulate conducting of business with the state by apparatchiks of this, the institution, and to provide for capacity development and training, amongst others. And of course, it has to comply to the Public Finance Management Act, which regulates, and Treasury regulations, which regulate how state resources and accountability related thereto should be addressed. From there is this Public Service Commission bill, where the Public Service Commission moots the idea that it needs to function as the secretariat to the DPSA as opposed to the Office of the Public Service Commission as led by the DG. And then the intention there is to convert Public Service Commission from being a government department to a function where shift as secretariat is to be enabled. Lastly, is to reinforce its mandate for local government and state-owned entities. In terms of its promotion and observation and assurance of adherence to basic values and principles that govern public service, that has been mentioned in Section 195. And that Section 195 speaks directly to the function of public administration as opposed to the function of public service, because the two are mutually exclusive. Public administration and public service are two distinct functions, and in terms of this section, this is what assigns the Public Service Commission the function of oversight on public admin as it supports democracy. And this is applicable to the three spheres of government, other organs of state and public enterprises, and it existing as an independent and an impartial entity. It's supposed to exercise its powers and functions without any fear, favor, or prejudice in the interest of maintenance of effective public service. The other important function is for it to stabilize political administrative interface, where, for example, where there is a change in the political leadership of a department, there still needs to be continuation of the administrative function by administrators or by managers. It shouldn't be that a new political head comes with a new administrative function, as it were. It's there in support of democracy, to support government in execution, oversight, and management of policies and public affairs. And the additional function it has now assumed is the recommendation of technical aspects, technical experts in supporting the processes of recruitment for senior managers, which is a function that it never had before, but now it has assumed that kind of function. And with the promulgation of the national framework for professionalization of the public sector, it supports professionalization of public service in that regard. I've mentioned where it is accountable. At national level, it's accountable to Parliament, and then at provincial level, it's accountable to the legislature, where it would report at least once a year on the activities that it is expected to do that. And it does so through the functions assigned to provincial commissioners in a province, like ours, as it does with the rest of the other provinces, where commissioners are appointed in terms of the section 1967B and 8B, where the procedure is as this committee has begun. These are the powers and functions of Public Service Commission as outlined in the Constitution. I would not read all of them. I'm sure this would take a lot of my time, but of utmost importance is section 196, subsection 3 of the Constitution, where it says, other organs of state. This provision there says other organs of state through legislation or other means must assist. It obligates other organs of state to assist and protect the Commission, to ensure its independence and impartiality, to ensure its dignity and effectiveness. I would not go through, Chair, the principles and values governing public admin, which are also in section 195, subsection 1, A to I, as it's seen there on the board. Safe to say, in terms of powers and functions, that was the last slide related to how it executes its powers and functions, and maybe elaboration beyond that would emerge from the questions that would emerge from the panel. In terms of optimization of performance, the perspective one gives is there is an assumption that one would make that it is performing well. And to optimize performance, it means you make it perform better than it is now. Now, there's a plethora of approaches and frameworks or methodologies out there about performance optimization. It's like a normal chemical reaction, as I have mentioned, where you would have reactants, the activated complex, and the product that you would want to produce, where ordinarily this would be decoded to mean there's the PPPs, people, process, and product. Now, within those methodologies that exist on how performance optimization can occur, many of them compete for airtime, while some of them are outdated and ill-equipped to prepare organizations or future leaders to navigate the ongoing disruption that happens politically, economically, socially, technologically in the industry and in the environment or within the legal ecosystem. Now, the importance of understanding the organization cannot be overemphasized, because one needs to learn the kind of animal that you are dealing with or the kind of horse that you are riding. The first issue or the first port of call would be in optimizing performance. One would review the past performance against the mandate that is being given over the past 3 years or 3 financial years to be safe. And of particular importance, one would be interested in looking at the management letter of the Commission as opposed to the audit report, because the audit report is a mere summary of the raw findings that may have been outlined in the management letter, which would give you in-depth knowledge of exactly what was going on within the institution prior to correction, post-interaction between management, maybe the executive authority, and the Auditor General. Now, in doing that, one would be able to discern the strengths, weaknesses, and the opportunities that exist to ensure performance of the institution, where one would be governed by the maxim of rules plus regulations minus relationships, always breeds rebellion and resentment. If that becomes the maxim from which to operate, it establishes the relationship one would have as a leader of that institution with individuals that you would be leading and how you would make them understand your vision so that you are able to do Kubernetes and drive them in the same direction. Following on that, one would establish a performance management system. I'm a fundi of the balanced scorecard system to ensure that there's efficiency and effectiveness and the economy in the management of resources or in the execution of duties. With efficiency, we refer to the situation where one has to do things the right way, as opposed to effectiveness where the right things are supposed to be done within the limited resources that are available, which is the aspect of the economy that we talk about. Now, how do we then, with implementation of the balanced scorecard method that I have spoken about specifically, and which has a view of efficiency, effectiveness, and the economy at heart, generating exponential results in linear environments where government, where we need to check how do we use government and social institutions as instruments of values and principles of public administration and public good. How do we transform that public good into beneficiation above the market average, meaning linear wealth versus the exponential challenges that we have? How do we as the leader generate results in an environment of fixed and linear constructs where there are finite resources, people and technology against fixed constraints of policy and laws?
Thank you, Dr. Malakwane. And that is your 15 minutes. I will then open the floor to members of the panel to ask their questions to the candidate. I will start with Honorable Meko.
Thank you, Chair, our Deputy Speaker. Let's welcome the presentation, Dr. Malakwane. I think in how you articulated the role of the Public Service Commission and its objective, how does your growth as a person throughout from childhood up until now, the schooling that you have been through, some of the responsibilities you assumed throughout your life have shaped you for the better, the lessons learned, challenges encountered, opportunities observed to prepare you better for this responsibility. Bearing in mind that Public Service Commission, the same way as the legislature itself, do not exist for themselves. Our responsibility almost been the same, to play oversight over the legislature, obviously the entire executive, Public Service Commission also over governance, to achieve clean government, professionalized public service, and all of that. How did your development as a person prepare you to assume a responsibility like that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I've been in this world for more than half a century. And in one's upbringing, at the time one grew up oblivious of what was going on around one's life. One was just happy to be alive, to live your life as a child, go through primary school. And at the time when one, I think, was in standard 4 or so, the consciousness related to what happened in Soweto in 1976. One was in standard 4, and I think I was almost the same age as Hector Peterson at the time, who would have been my age had he been alive to see this day. Only did one become aware of what was going on, and the fact that one was brought up by a policeman, one got to know from a very young age of what was going on there, but little did one understand what was the relevance of what happened there, what was the reason and why the fuss by students and children as young as the one who paid the ultimate price as the first victim of the uprisings. This got to one's mind when one reached university, where within the first year that one got into the university, I got to experience the very first encounter with politics. And that's way back when I was doing first year medicine, and got to understand under tutelage of the late Dr. Molefi Sifularo, who showed us and continuously conscientized us about what was going on in our country, which led one to being a member of ASASO. Even though at the time there was ASASM that was existing. And through activism and understanding the challenges that the then banned African National Congress stood for, one got to become an activist, where even in my first year, after nine months being a first year student, I was in the SRC. And I participated as a student leader from that young age, under the same tutelage, leading student activism, the Education Charter campaign, the Release Mandela campaign, campaigns against the tricameral parliament.
Thank you, Dr. Malakwane. Your time is up for that question. I will now allow Honorable Van Vieren.
Thank you, Chair, and let me also welcome the presentation from Dr. Malakwane. Doctor, if you want to see the government to be rebuilt and trust and professionalize government services, give us examples of your ability to attract, develop and retain talent, and how you will use this to ensure that the Free State provincial government get this professionalism or the trust that it deserves back. So I repeat it.
No.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, Honorable Van Vieren. I have made an indication on how, as leaders, can we generate better results in an environment where there are fixed and linear constructs. This I mentioned in the presentation, where there are finite resources and finite people. Now, and fixed constraints, which I related to policy and perhaps regulations that would be constraining. Now, the only way, or one of the ways to ensure that there are better results, there's better performance by government to live up to its mandate and to deliver the services as it should. Perhaps it's about time we sign up with everyone involved a concordat of meritocracy, which government may have begun to do with professionalization of the public service, where insulation from political influence on public officials should be an embedded department by the powers that be, or by policy or regulations that exist. And there should be a way in which continuing and competency-based assessments of professionals that run or lead governments should be entrenched, and the culture of accountability, where responsibilities are assigned, with the corollary of liability where there is failure. And from there, other people colloquially call it consequence management. Whenever we have to have people to account, to take responsibility for, to be made to take responsibility for assigned duties and functions for which they receive emoluments, and those that they do not live up to what is expected, there are consequences attached thereto. I'm sure there will be better performance and better compliance to the needs of the communities or to protection of the public good that is entrusted on functionaries of government.
Thank you, Doctor. If there's no follow-up on that, I will move to Honorable Pretorius. Okay.
Chair, it's actually first.
Okay. No,
Honourable
it's
Klute.
fine.
But should I
It's
continue?
fine, you may continue.
Thank you. Dr. Malekwane, thank you very much for your presentation. So I would like to know from you, I see in your CV that you served as the municipal manager of the Machabeng municipality for a period of 5 years. What were some of your major challenges as municipal manager of Machabeng, and what were some of your successes, your highlights during your tenure as MM?
Thank you for the question. May I say I spent, I think, 3 years at Machabeng from 2006 May until 2008 April. Machabeng is the second biggest municipality in the province. And one of the biggest challenges that one encountered was a dysfunctional municipality, in the sense that the very identification of a problem where there is non-insulation of functionaries from politics, which was the nature of how governance was playing itself at the time. That was a serious challenge on one hand, and on the other hand, related to competence of officials. You would recall from my CV, I'm a medical professional, a hardcore medical professional who believes that the science of medicine has only helped me to be able to navigate any sphere of learning, whether it's law or metaphysics or quantum mechanics. With that knowledge and base, I would be able to navigate through that. Hence, one was able to navigate municipal laws or municipal regulations, your Systems Act, Structures Act, and many other, as a highly regulated institution, municipalities as it were. The challenge of performance failures, dysfunction, and the fact that non-collection of revenue, which is the cornerstone of any municipal function or municipal performance, lay at the heart of inability to do much of what was embedded in the IDP and which we had as government promised to deliver to communities, because you would know that 15% of the total municipal budget is what constitutes equitable share. 85% is supposed to be collected through rates and taxes. And in a poor municipality, it would be a challenge to do that. Hence, you would find spending of monies that were not intended for particular functions being used on others. So the revenue base is a problem. The economic makeup of the communities there is a problem. Joblessness and finite resources available were serious challenges that were difficult to navigate, particularly even against promises to implement services.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Let me now allow the Honorable Klute.
Thank you, Chairperson. Dr. Malekwane, Thank you, Malcolm. What do you think are the biggest challenges currently in the public sector, with specific reference to the Free State? And how would you, as Commissioner, address those challenges?
In terms of functions of the Public Service Commission as an institution that supports democracy, with the benefit of knowledge of the various municipalities of this province, the various provincial government departments, there is a cocktail of factors, most of which are varied, that affect one municipality and that affect and differ from one municipality to the other, from one provincial department to the other, and the interface between provincial departments and municipalities, and how national departments are entrusted to coordinate the functions of provincial level departments and local level municipalities, inclusive of the districts. We still have the same problem of competence. We have a problem of poverty that lies across where municipalities are unable to collect revenue. Of course, issues related to professionalization of public service, getting the right person on the right seat in the right bus, that's easy to achieve. There just needs to be the correct political intellectual makeup to ensure that that takes root and it happens and is expressed locally. And that can be done at provincial, at local level. Right people, right seat, right bus. But they have to have revenue base to deliver on the services. Same principle applies to provincial level. Right people, right seat, right bus. Ensure that they understand whether it's Batopili principles in the attempt to professionalize the public service and the character or nature of people that you would require in the position requires proper political buy-in, which I said, perhaps we need a concordat of meritocracy. Hence, you would see the attempt at the district implementation model there are problems implementing it in the sense, or it even taking root. Because the problem is, there are municipalities that are governed maybe by one political party and the others by another political party. And when the one governing the district is supposed to coordinate the one running local government, it becomes difficult. Now, there's polarization of governance. We work alone together. There's not necessarily a peaceful coexistence, and we need to deal with that.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll now allow the Honorable Khwabane.
Thank you, Doctor. Considering the office of the PSC, its audit outcome of 2023, what would be your 100-day plan? Picking out on three or so priorities in relation to the financial management. Looking into the audit outcome of 2023, picking out just on three or so priorities on financial management, what would be your 100-day plan? And then the second one would be, what would be your 3-year plan of the office? Thanks.
As one has, thank you, Dr. Horan, for the question. As one has mentioned, that the audit report or the management letter or the management report, for me, would become the basis for which to find means to align the institution to the vision that one would set for it to be a performing institution. I move from the premise that an audit opinion, no matter what it is, does not necessarily reflect what obtains within the functions of the department. And I will cite an example. There would be a particular department that has got irregular or unauthorized expenditure of 1 billion. There's one such department in the province. And then they get a clean audit. Now, irregular or unauthorized expenditure by itself, when investigated, there is a preponderance of financial misconduct. But what lies at the opinion that is given by the Auditor General is whether have you declared everything in good faith. You didn't hide anything. But that on its own does not necessarily reflect the performance of the institution. That's why I thought I needed to mention that, because the audit opinion, for lack of putting it properly, does not necessarily it does not necessarily reflect a feather in your cap. It merely reflects that you've been honest in showing the misdeeds and the goods that you would have done. I operate as a leader, which is what I've done in the various departments I've led, as my resume would reflect. One operates on what gets to be delivered via the performance management system that one introduces on a quarterly basis, quarter by quarter, year by year, uncompromisingly so and continuously, where a demand for performance is made upon each and every one that is assigned responsibilities. One ensures from the get-go that everyone is neurally connected to the mandate at hand, and it gets monitored like a hawk on a month-by-month basis, quarter-by-quarter basis, and that becomes the continuation of how one works. One doesn't work on a year plan as the APP would. It has to be fireworks all the time.
Thank you. Honorable Khaurekwe.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Let me also welcome the presentation by Dr. Malakwane. Doctor, my question is, what kind of mandate would you want from the President and the Premier for you to take this job? Which part of this are non-negotiable? The question is more about the integrity and ethical behavior.
The question says, what do I expect the President
Yes.
and the Premier to do to find me suitable for this position?
The mandate will you want from the President and the Premier for you to take this job?
I'm having difficulty understanding the question.
Let me repeat the question. The question said, what kind of mandate would you want from the President and the Premier for you to take this job? Which part of this are non-negotiable?
Okay. If I understand the question well, one doesn't rely only on one's track record or credentials to be entrusted with the responsibility that lies with this. I'm struggling to look for an alternative word to job or function. The dynamic internal resources that one believes one possesses, and the ethical conduct that one embraces or espouses at all times, inclusive of Batopili principles that one practices, I think they should stand in good stead after testing the credentials as presented there, and maybe if one emerges as the preferred candidate amongst the best that had come before me here, I think perhaps that may be a consideration. But of importance to me and would be a consideration of a person that is good or that is more suitable for this position, which is a responsibility that lies with you as the committee, and maybe subsequently to the legislature with the recommendation by the Premier to the President. So that essentially, I think, would be the way to go. As to the test of my ethical being, I'm in your hands, and maybe that could be tested.
Is there a follow-up on that, or are you happy, Honorable Khaurekwe? You are happy, then we can move. I'll now note the Honorable Fogo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, the chairperson of this panel. Welcome, Dr. Malakwani. Dr. Malakwani, will you make any changes to the key corporate processes, such as business planning risk reviews or business reviews, and why? I thank you.
Perhaps this gives me an opportunity to unpack the slide that you see in front of you, Honorable, where the content here seems to address the very question that is that has just been asked on what is it that I would change or optimize or make better. It is for one to understand where we are and determine where we should be headed. And how we get there, it would be a matter of conjecture now. But in terms of systems that are implemented to address exactly that which is outlined, that would be the way to go. One, how do we generate exponential results in a linear environment? If one was to make a hypothesis of a plotted graph where you have your X and Y axis, and parallel to your X axis, you have a linear market average, which is performance that is neither going down or going up. And you decide that you are going to generate better results in that kind of environment against certain constructs, whether it's available resources or they are finite, available skill or unavailable skill, or available technology or unavailable technology, buttressing that against constraints of policy and regulation. How would you effect change? How would you make change? Is a striking instance of becoming different from the original position. And in this instance, if there is a demand for protection and delivery of the public good, we need to be exponential in the delivery of what we are required. Meaning, we provide what Vusi Tembekwayo would call the alpha plus X. How do you ensure that you harness your existing resources, people and material, to perform better? If there are policies that are constraining, how do they get amended or changed or improved to enhance the kind of performance that you would want to yield? How do you measure yourself? How would you be able to measure yourself and outperform the market plus X that I've spoken, by maximizing the resources to achieve better results? That goes within having the right people, right seats, right bus, support and motivate your team to understand your vision and to perform your better. And you build your organization with rigor and agility. That's the only way you can perform exponentiality in linear markets, or to be a change agent within what you would like to produce as a different or a performing institution. Now, the aspect of awareness and having the desire and the knowledge and ability with the support of those with whom the change that you would like to bring would be needed is the recipe that one needs to have to spice up the performance that you would like to have, or the change that you would like to bring. You need to become the employee that you would want to work with, or you would need to become the employee that you would like him or her to work for you.
Thank you, Dr. Malakwane. And the last question from the Honorable Sukwebela.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Doctor. I see that you are heading towards retirement with the age, but we know that doctors, they will forever work in accordance with your profession, as the demand is very high. So my question is, it's one, I just want to understand that in your own opinion, what do you think are the key stakeholders in the office of the PSC?
There are, thank you for the question, that is Gwebela. There are immediate stakeholders and stakeholders within which we or the organization would live or would operate. As an institution that supports democracy, which is based on the will of the people, first you have to be a good citizen as the Commission. Citizenship begins to be espoused first by the institution itself, which will have to oversee those interests or public goods that the immediate stakeholders, like 3 spheres of government, other organs of state, though it's still considered subordinate to the Chapter 9 institutions, state-owned enterprises. All that is done in servitude for the communities, which are the main stakeholders that define the very existence of all 3 spheres of government, inclusive of the support functions that the institution would do. That's why the Commission plays oversight over all the 3 spheres of government and state-owned enterprises to ensure that the main stakeholder, which are the communities, are not shortchanged. Hence, you find the Public Service Charter that's there, the Batupili principles that need to be observed and implemented, and everyone being monitored, whether they are doing good thereon, and where there is dissatisfaction or lack of performance, it would need to be understood what are the reasons and what are remediation measures. Hence, the main stakeholders, I've said, the communities that have made it possible, and the immediate ones being government departments, or as I've said, 3 spheres of government, inclusive of SOEs.
Thank you, Honorable Malakwane. And this brings us to the end of our interview. Is there anything that you would like to ask the committee before we release you?
No, Chair, there isn't anything. Many thanks for the opportunity, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to honorable members of the community of the committee for allowing me to come and present myself before you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malakwane. You are now released. Honorable members, this brings us to the end of that interview. And we would now adjourn. The time is 10 to 4. We would resume our proceedings at, it's 10 to 4, at 4 o'clock. Thank you so much, honorable members, and good afternoon to you, Dr. Malakwana. Any latecomers will be fined this time around. Our fine starts from 500 for the minute that you are late, per minute.